So here it is, the PC Engine Mini. I was originally going to get the Core Graphics Mini, but because of this whole pandemic thing, that and the TurboGrafx 16 Mini, that's how you pronounce it, was put on hold indefinitely for now. But I think they will probably still make them at some point. I don't know if they've made any official announcement, but we sprung for the Japanese one. It's pretty much the same. There's a slight variation in the games. I think Salamander is missing for this one, and you get Tokimeki Memorial instead, which is right there, fully in Japanese, which means I can play it. But it's I guess it's not there already. Box is already getting a lot of nasty fingers on it, so let's hurry away from that and take a look at what's inside instead. Open up, slide out the content. You get a manual that is very much like the original PC Engine manual. The box is as well smaller, obviously, but very much like the original PC Engine manual. I think the original manual might have had a green cover instead, and probably different content, since that one didn't hook up via HDMI like this one. On the manual side, we can start by taking a look at the controller. That's another big change from the international versions. TurboGrafx and the Core Graphics both have turbo controllers, whereas this one does not. So no auto fire, but it does feel like a real good quality controller. There's a mini USB cable for power, pretty standard these days. Here's the console itself, and underneath that there's a mini, just a normal HDMI cable, so nothing more to look at there. But let's take a look at the console. While the original PC Engine was quite small, this one is actually slightly smaller than the original PC Engine console, just ever so slightly. So obviously no SD card slot, but you do get two USB ports, which means that you can play two players right out of the gate, which was something you need a multi-tap for with the PC Engine. Got the power switch right here. Looks just like the original, and then you got the cover here in the back, like the original one has, that you can take off and reveal the ports. So in this case, HDMI and micro USB. Underneath we got a nice sticker from Konami. Got the serial number here and barcode. That's pretty much it for the hardware. So yeah, this is pretty much all the interesting stuff you get in the box, apart from the HDMI and micro USB cable. One single controller, which I guess is fine, but you can definitely buy multiple controllers online. There's also a multi-tap, which they released for this system, but that's pretty much just a standard USB hub, so nothing really special there. But I guess it would be nice to own an official Konami PC Engine branded USB hub. Anyway, why don't we try and hook this up and take a look at some of the games. If you're even slightly bit familiar with any of these mini consoles, the PC Engine Mini is pretty much the standard fare. It's very comparable to both the Nintendo and Sega console when it comes to layout. You got all the settings you might expect, like the ability to change the language to English, change into various display options, and add a CRT filter, which is just blur and scan lines. You can sort the games in various ways, and here at the bottom you can also switch between the PC Engine lineup and the TurboGrafx 16 lineup. And man, how awesome is it that they decided to put both English and Japanese games on the console. Of course, at the time I thought it was a smart thing to do, considering just how many games you would miss out on if you had a console that were just English games. Because let's be honest, the PC Engine is the console with just so many games that are Japanese exclusives, but just essential in any collection. Now, I'm still relatively new to the PC Engine TurboGrafx 16. I think I didn't really know about it until about 10 years ago. The reason being that it was never released here in Scandinavia, and barely released in Europe. I think it was just France who got it, maybe England had some too. But as someone coming into these games relatively new, I think it's been amazing to discover just all these great classics that I'd never heard about, and especially the CD-ROM games. The PC Engine might not have been powerful enough for video compression, and wasn't able to jump on the bandwagon with all those full motion video games that you saw on the PC and the Mega CD. But who knew that it would actually end up being to the benefit of the PC Engine. The animation you get from these games, something like Ys or Spriggan, it's just beautiful. It's aged like fine wine. So you get CD quality audio, voice acting, and just super sharp and nice crispy pixels. And by the time I realized that this is exactly what I wanted, I think the games and the hardware had already gotten a little bit too expensive, out of my price range. I mean, these days if you want a PC Engine, you'd want to have it RGB modded, and you'd want the Duo R, which is a pretty expensive console, not to mention the price of the games themselves. If you're looking at this mini console on Amazon and think it looks a little bit too expensive, it's actually quite a huge value for the money. Currently you'd have to pay about 3 times the price of the console here, just for a game like Sapphire. So why not just emulate them, you ask? And that's actually what I've been doing for the last decade or so. I've been playing these games on the Wii, which is a nice console for it, since you can hook it up to a CRT via an RGB SCART cable. But you know, I'm glad that I'm finally able to support these games as they are released from Konami prison in some kind of official capacity. What a selection we have here. I don't think I'll go over everything, there's no real use for it, as I'm sure it's been covered plenty up to the release of the console and on other YouTube channels. But there's some great games here like Ys Book 1 and 2, which is a game I've kind of been looking forward to really getting into. Actually ended up with the Master System version last year, but I feel like the TurboGrafx 16 version is the more real version. It's also been fun to discover some games that I've heard about but never actually really played before. Games like Newtopia, I heard it was a bit of a Zelda rip-off, but I didn't realize how much of a Zelda rip-off it actually is. Quite interesting, and not unsurprising that something as popular as The Legend of Zelda ends up getting a lot of copycats. Another great game and a pretty late addition to the lineup is Splatterhouse. Much requested game, and this is one of the benefits of owning the Japanese version of the system, as the other regions will have the censored Western version. There's probably some blood and guts pulled from that one, I don't really know, but I do know that Rick's mask is red in that one rather than white. Probably not censorship as much as it was trying to avoid getting sued over ripping off the design from Friday the 13th. And here's another game that I thought I knew already, and it's Kadash, which until I played it was a completely different game in my mind, but after digging around a bit I found out that the game I was thinking about was actually Growl, which is a game that I don't even think was on the PC Engine. I think it was just arcade and the Sega Mega Drive. So yeah, Kadash is another great adventure game about exploring dungeons, defeating monsters, collecting coin and experience. So while the system doesn't actually have, you know, proper traditional Japanese role-playing games on it, it does have a lot of these types of games, and that I think it would have made me incredibly happy to own one back in the day. But of course we can't forget that 75% of the console is shooters. And what a lot of great shooters that are on this platform. Games like Blazing Lasers, which I think was a game that the TurboGrafx 16 launched with. What a package. This is a shooter I like a lot. It doesn't feel overtly challenging, and you just have a ton of interesting and fun pickups. Then you have Air Sunk, which is just a beautiful side-scrolling shooter with a really fantastic soundtrack. I've never really listened to it before prior to playing it here, but it's a fun time and pretty funny as well. Then there's Aldines, which has one of the best shooter soundtracks ever made in my opinion. And since this is a Konami product, you gotta have Gradius on it. Not the biggest fan of Gradius myself. Don't really like these sorts of games where the power-up build-up is so incredibly slow. But I can't deny that it's a classic. And here's a fun thing you can do with your PC engine. A little bit of extra from the fine folks of M2, who was in charge of the emulation. In the case of Gradius, when holding select while booting the game, you'll get to play a modified version that they kind of call near arcade version. It's not the actual arcade version, but a sort of brand new PC Engine port with vastly improved graphics and sounds. This is also something they've done for Fantasy Zone. You can see the original here. And if you hold down select when running the game, you'll launch into the Fantasy Zone near arcade version, where they again have done some color corrections and completely overhauled the sound. The final game can be found by starting Soldier Blade while holding down select. This will launch Soldier Blade Special Caravan Stage. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the concept of caravan shooters, they are a type of score attack mode with a time limit, usually 2 or 5 minutes, and it's a term coined by Hudson Soft, who used to hold these shooting competition called caravans. So for some of these easier shooters, where you can just keep playing and playing and playing if you're really good at them, Caravan mode is a great way to have a fun little shooting competition with your friends. So does doing the select plus start trick do anything to any of the other games? Well, not really for any of the chip games, but for the CD-ROM games, you can hold down select and press start to purposely load the game with the CD-ROM system card instead of the Super CD-ROM system card, which will give you an error screen. What's so fun about that? Well, the error screens were all original content. It was not just a boring old standard message. It was all original screens that the developers made themselves for the game. In the case of Snatcher, you get Metal Gear looking confused. For Cho Aniki, you get this half-drawn, crying bodybuilder ninja man. For Tokimeki Memorial, you have Shiori Fujisaki telling you to get the right type of CD-ROM card. And for Castlevania Rondo of Blood, you actually get this cute little micro game where you walk left to right, whip 2 baddies, and is then presented with the error screen seen right here. It's a fun inclusion, since you'd normally not see these kinds of error messages in other modern re-releases of these games. It's just another one of those small touches that M2 put on their products that makes it feel like it's a real passion project that you're sitting with here. This is put out by people who really care. So yeah, the PC Engine Mini I think is just overall a great product. A lot of people buy these consoles for nostalgia's sake, but if you're like me and interested in retro gaming and still relatively new to these kinds of games, I'd say check it out. It's an Amazon exclusive product, and it's pretty easy to order Amazon anywhere in the world. Like, even in the middle of this whole corona crisis thing, this thing still shipped from Japan and was here in like 5 days, all the way up in Denmark, halfway across the globe. You could also hold out for the TurboGrafx 16 Mini or the Core Graphics Mini for a bit of an alternate design, and those sweet Autofire controllers which might be helpful in some of the games on the system. Anyway, check it out, and thank you for watching, and have a great day.